Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Final Table Highlights for FTOPS 8. I'm Ali Najad and today we're going to take a look at event number 22, the Pot Limit Omaha with Rebuy's event hosted by C.E. Stockinger. Tournament information, $100 buy-in, 939 players in the field, prize pool $370,000, and first place would take home over $85,000. Looking at the chip counts, two players had over $1 million in front of them. Call Your Mom with $830,000 and change was in third place, and MC Mark Raz had over $250,000 but was on the short stack. Action got underway with the blinds at $15,000 and $30,000 and a $5K ante. It would be folded around to XR8 on the button. With just shy of $500,000, he would open the pot to $105,000 and be called by Frodo. Split open would lay down on the big blind. Flop was 6-4-9 rainbow, and Frodo let out for $240,000. XR8 then shipped it all in. Not much more for Frodo to call, and he would turn over a pair of sixes with a straight draw. He would make tens and sixes on the turn, and XR8's aces were no good as he was sent home in ninth place. So Frodo took over the chip lead with 8 players remaining. He had over $1.5 million in his stack. Action was folded around to the Ashman. He made it $140,000 to go. Call Your Mom laid down, and it was on the Doctor on the button, who would re-raise to $480,000. Both small and big blind laid down. Ashman would ship it all in and get called. He had Ace King 10-9 up against Ace King Queen 6. The flop was 8 Jack 3, all diamonds. Ashman had flopped the nut flush. It wasn't looking good for the Doctor, and the turn and the river were no help whatsoever as Ashman took the pot and pumped up to over $1.2 million in chips. Ashman was sitting pretty and in the small blind in this next hand. Action was on the Doctor under the gun, who had lost the last pot. He would lay it down, as would Rollover, Slobodan, Frodo, and Split Open and me. MC Mark Raz would attack the blinds from the button, making it $140,000. Ashman laid it down. Call Your Mom re-raised. MC Mark would ship it all in, and they would both turn their hands over. It was King 3-4 with a couple of spades against Ace Queen 7-7 with 3 spades in his hand. Flop was 6 Queen 10. MC Mark had flopped a pair of queens. Kings were still looking good. Turn and the river were no help to MC Mark. Call Your Mom would pump up to over $1.3 million in chips, while MC Mark would say goodbye in 8th place, pocketing $8,662. Blinds at $20,000 and $40,000 in 7-handed action. Slobodan was under the gun. He would take his time and make it $100,000 to go, shy of a pot size raise. Action folded around to Call Your Mom, who would lay down on the button. Doctor would then make it $340,000 from the small blind. Rollover would lay it down from the big. Doctor only had $51,000 behind at this point. He was essentially pot committed. $240,000 for Slobodan to call, and he could expect that the remaining $51,000 would be shipped in on the flop. Slobodan would tank, ask for time. Everyone got the memo that the next blinds would be $25,000 and $50,000, and Slobodan would move all in. The Doctor, of course, would call and show King 10 ace with a couple of hearts. He was up against clubs and spades, King Queen Jack 8. Flop came down 9-5-9. A third 9 hit the turn, and Doctor's pocket kings would hold up as he would send Slobodan home in 7th place, pocketing over $11,000. As promised, the blinds went up to $25,000 and $50,000. Frodo was in the big. He was the chip leader with over 2.2 in front of him. Short stack Split Open and me would ship it all in. The Ashman would then make it almost $600,000 over the top of that. Everybody would fold, and it was Ashman and Split Open and me heads up. 7-4-4 ace, no suited, against the Ashman's Ace 5-8-7 with spades and clubs. The flop put up a couple of kings and a 5, and Ashman had outflopped Split Open. Nine of spades on the turn was no help for Split, and on the end he'd need a king or a four, would not get it, instead picking up the queen of diamonds and almost $17,000 while finishing in 6th place. With the blinds at 30 and 60,000, short stack at the table belonged to Dr. 44. Frodo was way out in the lead and in the big blind with over $3 million in chips. Doctor would make it $210,000, potting it on the button after action was folded to him. In came the re-raise from rollover in the small blind. And Frodo would put both players all in from the big blind. Doctor would call, as would rollover. The hands were as follows: 3-9, Queen, Queen for the Doctor, 9-Jack, Queen, King for rollover, and King, King, 10 Ace for Frodo with a couple of hearts. Flop came Ace, 6-3. Frodo was way out in front with a pair of aces. Turn produced the 4 of clubs. Neither Doctor or rollover were looking very good, and when the 10 of spades hit the river, Frodo jumped up to over $4.4 million in chips, eliminating 2 players in one hand. So after eliminating 2 players in one hand, Frodo was sitting very pretty up against the short stacked Ashman and Call Your Mom. Ashman min raised, Call Your Mom then re-raised to $210,000. Frodo was out of the way. Ashman would then ship $660,000 in there. They would both get it all in and show King Jack 10-10 against Queen 8-9-7. Ashman had Call Your Mom covered. On the flop, he'd hit a set. Things were not looking good for Call Your Mom, who picked up a straight draw on the turn, but could not connect on the end as Ashman pumped up to over $1.3 million in chips, heading into heads-up action. We pick up heads-up play with the Ashman down to just over $600,000 in chips. He was on the button and would make it $240,000 to go. Frodo would defend. Flop was Queen 4-4 with a couple of diamonds. Frodo would check. Ashman would ship it all in for over $430,000, and it was back on Frodo with just under $5 million in his stack. He would make the call and show King Queen for queens and fours. Ashman was not looking good. On the turn, he'd pick up a couple of gut shot straight draws, and on the river, the miracle deuce would keep him alive and double him up. Blinds were still at 40 and 80,000, and Frodo had just over $4 million in front of him. He'd pot it from the button and get repotted out of the blind by Ashman. Frodo would then put Ash all in, who would call and show Ace-9, King-10 up against a couple of queens and Ace-4 for Frodo. Ashman would flop a pair of 10s. He was still a dog, though, until the turn when he made a pair of kings to go with his 10s, and his 2-pair would hold up all the way down as he doubled through yet again. So Ashman had picked up the chip lead in the last pot, and he wasted no time putting it to good use. As Frodo tried to limp in to no avail, Ashman raised it $200,000 more. Frodo would call, and the flop was 5 King 6 Rainbow. Ashman was in control. He took some time before betting just over $500,000. Frodo shipped it all in over 1.5, and he'd get called by the Ashman instantly, who showed the nuts at the time. Pocket kings up against bottom 2 pair. Frodo was in terrible shape. He made 3-pair on the turn and even filled up on the river, but it wasn't enough to take down Ashman's kings full as he was the champion. Frodo would earn over $53,000 for his efforts, but he was no doubt disappointed with the self-destruction at the end there. Ashman did hold some good cards, and it earned him $85,146 and the title. Don't forget, FTOPS 9 is right around the corner. If you'd like to qualify for any of our upcoming FTOPS events, just go to Full Tilt Poker, click on the tournament lobby, and then on the satellites tab. I hope you've enjoyed this edition of Full Tilt Poker's FTOPS 8 Final Table Highlights. I'm Ali Najad saying so long.